Hey everyone, and welcome. Tonight, we step into the shadows of history, not the grand halls of emperors or the battlefields lit by torchlight, but the quiet corners where ordinary people lived, worked, and survived against the weight of their worlds. We're going to walk in the sandals of those rarely remembered, the woman in the brothel cellar of ancient Rome, the Viking healer whispering prayers over yarrow and fire, the peasant girl who heard saints and changed a nation, the baker kneading dough in the dead of night, and the countless unsung hands that kept civilizations fed, healed, and whole. This isn't just history, it's lived history. The creak of a wooden kneading trough, the sting of nettle on a warrior's wound, the flicker of an oil lamp in a tiny room where a woman paints her smile before dawn. We're not looking at dates and decrees. We're feeling the pulse of the past, raw, real, and human. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If these stories make you pause, wonder, or feel a little less alone in the quiet struggles of life, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. And let me know in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? And what time is it for you right now? It's always fascinating to see who is joining us from around the world. A student in Seoul catching this before bed. A night owl in Toronto with tea in hand, someone in Cairo watching between shifts. You're part of this story now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background. Let the outside world fade, because tonight, we're not just learning about the past, we're stepping into it. One breath at a time. The daily life of a Roman prostitute, a story of survival, shame, and strength in the shadow of an empire you wake up, or rather you regain consciousness. There's no sunrise to greet you, no bird song, no gentle stirring from dreams. Just the slow, heavy return to a body that aches in places you've stopped naming, and a mind that already knows the day ahead. You're lying on a straw mattress, thin and lumpy, stuffed with something that might have once been hay. It smells faintly of wine, smoke, and yes, disappointment, not yours alone. It's the scent of the room, soaked into the walls, the blanket, your skin. There's no window, no fresh air, just a single oil lamp, its wick nearly burned down, flickering like a dying heartbeat in the corner. This is your home, a cellar, a closet, a cell really. But it's yours, in the way a prison is yours, after you've lived in it long enough. You shift, and the rustle of straw is loud in the silence. You listen. Down the hall, someone coughs. Another woman groans, half in pain, half in pleasure, you can't tell which. A man's voice, slurred with wine, says something crude, then laughter, then silence. You don't move. You just lie there, staring at the ceiling, which is so low you could reach up and touch it if you wanted to. Maybe you did once. Maybe you used to dream of touching the sky. Now you just dream of sleep. But there's no time. You sit up. Your joints crack. Your back aches. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, bare feet meeting cold stone. No slippers. Not today. This is how it begins. Not with a sunrise. Not with a prayer. But with the quiet, relentless act of surviving another day as a woman who sells her body in the heart of Rome, the cellar, a brothel in the belly of the city. Your room is in a lupane or a brothel. The word comes from lupa, which means she-wolf. It's not a compliment. In Rome, a lupa wasn't a fierce protector of her young. She was a predator, a slut, a woman who used her body to survive. And that's exactly what you are. The lupaner is tucked between a tavern and a bathhouse in the Suburra, one of the most crowded, chaotic neighborhoods in Rome. It's a two-story building, narrow and tall, built like a stack of cages. The ground floor is the public face, dimly lit, smoky, with a small counter where the Lena, the madam, sits like a spider at the center of her web. Upstairs and below ground are the rooms. Yours is below. A basement, a cellar. You don't mind? It's cooler in summer, quieter sometimes. And when the rain comes, the water doesn't leak through the ceiling like it does in the upper rooms, but it's dark, always dark, and damp. And you can hear everything, the footsteps above, the laughter, the moans, the arguments, the occasional scream. You've learned to tune it out. Mostly you stand, stretch, and walk to the corner where your few possessions are kept. A comb, a small bronze mirror, cracked but still functional, A wooden box with cheap coal, red ochre, and a cake of white-face powder made from lead and chalk. You don't have perfume, not real perfume. It's for the meretresses, the high-class courtesans who work in the better parts of the city, near the Forum or the Palatine Hill. No, you use a splash of wine mixed with herbs rosemary. Maybe time to mask the smell of sweat, sex, and the bucket in the corner. Yes, the bucket. There's no latrine, no plumbing, just a wooden pail you empty into the gutter outside when you can. If you can't, well, you learn to hold it, or you learn to live with the stench. You dip your fingers into the wine water and wipe your face, then your arms, then your feet. A quick rinse. It's your morning bath. Later, if business is slow, you might go to the public baths. But not today. Today the work starts early. You dress. A short tunic, dyed a bright red, deliberately garish. You're not trying to be elegant, you're trying to be seen. The law says you can't wear the stola, the long modest dress of respectable Roman women. So you wear the toga. Yes, the same garment worn by senators and emperors, but yours is different. Yours is short, bright, worn with cheap bronze jewelry and sandals with worn soles. It's not a fashion statement. It's a brand. You are not a wife, not a mother, not a virgin. You are for sale. The toga says it all. The morning ritual, paint, powder, and pretense. You sit on the edge of the bed and pick up the mirror. Your reflection stares back. You're young, early 20s maybe, but you look older, tired. The coal around your eyes is smeared from last night. There's a bruise on your shoulder. Some drunk senator who got rough. You don't remember his name. You never do. You dip your finger into the red ochre and paint your lips. Then the white powder on your face. And the coal, thick and heavy, to make your eyes look larger, more mysterious. You don't do it for beauty. You do it to hide the truth. The truth is you're exhausted, you're scared, you're lonely. But no one pays for that. They pay for confidence, for allure, for the illusion that you want them. So you practice the smile, not a real one that died years ago, but the sultry one. The half-lidded, come-hither look. The one that says, asterisk, I see you, I want you, I'm worth every coin. Customer once told you you had a charmingly awake look. You still remember it. It was the nicest thing anyone's ever said to you. You set the mirror down. You're ready. The marketplace of flesh. Selling yourself in the streets of Rome, you step into the hallway. It's narrow, dark. Doors just curtains, really line both sides. Other women are waking up, dressing, whispering to each other. Some are already at work. One girl, barely 16, is crying in the corner. You don't ask why, you already know. First night, bad client. Maybe he hit her, maybe he didn't pay. Maybe he just made her feel like dirt. You walk past her. You don't comfort her, not because you don't care, but because you can't. If you start caring, you'll break. And broken women don't survive in the lupaner. You reach the entrance. Felina's already there, counting coins, her eyes sharp, her voice like a whip. Late, she says. You don't answer. You owe me 2 nights' rent, she adds. And if you don't make it today, you'll sleep in the gutter. You nod. You've heard it before. You step outside. The sun is up now, harsh and bright. The streets are already crowded, merchants, slaves, soldiers, senators, beggars, priests. Everyone walking, shouting, buying, selling. And you're part of the marketplace. But you're not selling bread or wine. You're selling yourself. You stand in the doorway, leaning against the frame, 1 foot slightly raised, your red tunic catching the light. You call out, 2 asses. Special price. An as is a small bronze coin, barely enough for a glass of cheap wine. But it's all some men can afford. Others wealthier, bolder might pay more. A denarius, maybe. Silver, that's a full day's wage for a laborer. But you don't get many of those. Most of your clients are sailors, soldiers, freedmen, or poor merchants, and they want it fast. They don't want conversation. They don't want romance. They want release, and you give it to them. You smile. You flirt. You touch a man's arm, just lightly, and say, you look like a man who deserves a good time. Some laugh, some scowl, some walk away, but some stay. And when they do, you lead them inside. Back to the cellar, back to the straw bed, back to the oil lamp and the bucket and the silence after they leave. The economics of desire. How much is a woman worth? You don't set your own prices. The Lena does. And she changes them depending on the day, the season, the competition. Last week a new girl started down the hall. Young, pretty. From Gaul, she wears a blonde wig made from imported hair. She's stealing your clients. So, the Lena dropped your price to one coin. For your body, your time, your dignity, you protested. She laughed. You want to eat? You'll work for one so you did. And you survived. But it's not just about the coins. It's about the cut. The Lena takes half. Sometimes more, if you're enslaved-like. Some of the girls here you get nothing. Just food, shelter, and the faint hope that one day, if you please enough men, you might buy your freedom. But that's a fantasy. Most enslaved women die in the lupaner. And even if you're free, it's not much better. No benefits, no protection, no future. Just today. Just this client. Just this coin. And when the money runs out, you starve or you beg. Hash, hash, hash. The body is a baddie as a battlefield. Disease. Pregnancy. And the cost of survival, you've had the sores before. It starts with an itch, then a rash, then pain. Oh. You know what it is, Morbus? Gallicus? The French disease? Syphilis? Or maybe gonorrhea? Or something else? You don't know? You don't have a doctor, you have vinegar and wine, and a prayer to Venus. You wash yourself. You rub garlic on the sores, you drink bitter herbs, but it doesn't always work. Some women lose their noses, their fingers, their minds, in pregnancy. That's worse. There's no birth control. Some women use wool soaked in vinegar, or animal intestines, tied like a sheath. But they don't always work. And if you get pregnant, you have 3 choices. 1, carry the child. But who will care for it? Gay baby in the lupana? It'll die of neglect or disease. 2, give it to the columna lactaria. The milk column where unwanted infants are left to be taken by slave traders or kind strangers. Most are not kind. 3, kill it. You've done it before. Potion, a sharp tool. A fall down the stairs. You don't like to think about it. But you'd rather that than watch a child grow up in this place. The gods of the forgotten. Religion in the brothel you pray, not in a temple, not with incense or priests. But here, the dark. You have a small altar in the corner of your room. A figurine of Venus, goddess of love. A charm of Fortuna, goddess of luck, and a cursed tablet. Defixio, nailed to the wall. It's for the blonde girl from Gaul. May her tongue rot. May her clients dry up. May she trip in the street and land in donkey dung. You paid a witch to write it. Cost you 2 asses. But it was worth it. You don't believe in the gods? Not really? But you believe in something. Something that might protect you. Something that might give you a break. So you light a candle. You whisper a prayer. Venus, make him pay. Fortuna, send me a kind man. Once one, and sometimes it works. Sometimes a client is gentle. He talks to you. He listens. He even tips. But mostly, it's just another man with coins and a need. And when he leaves, you're alone again. The clients. A gallery of men there are types. The nervous boy. First time. He stammers. He blushes. Doesn't know what to do. You guide him, gently. He leaves, smiling. You feel almost maternal. It's the drunk soldier. Rough. Loud. Demanding. He wants it fast. He doesn't care if you're tired. He hits you if you complain. You endure.
The vibe.
The bored senator. Rich. Powerful. Married. He comes at night, disguised. He talks about philosophy. He quotes Virgil. Wants you to pretend you're in love with him. You do. He pays well. But he never looks you in the eye. The grieving widower. He comes once a month. He doesn't want sex. He just wants to lie beside someone, to feel warmth. Talk about his wife. You let him. You don't charge him. Not that time. It's a philosopher. He says he's studying the nature of desire. Wants to know how you feel. Do you hate it? Do you enjoy it? Are you free? You tell him to shut up and get on with it. And then there's the one who falls in love. He comes every week. Brings you flowers. Writes you poems. Says he'll buy your freedom. He marry you. Take you to the country. You almost believe him. But you've heard it before. And when he stops coming, you don't cry. You just add another layer of coal. The law and the lupa. Taxation, stigma, and the state. You're not illegal. That's the irony. Prostitution is legal in Rome, but it's also taxed. Yes, the state collects a tax on sex workers. It's called the vectigal ex capturis, and you pay it. Every month, a tax collector republicanus comes around with his wax tablet and stylus. He checks your name, counts your earnings, takes his cut. Another coin for the aqueducts, he says, smirking. You hand it over, you don't argue. Because if you don't pay, you're fined. Arrested, maybe branded. Yes, branded. Some women, especially slaves, are marked with a hot iron. Lupa, chevalf, a permanent label, a warning. In the law, it says you're infamous, not a criminal, but shameful. You can't testify in court, can't marry a citizen, can't inherit property. You're not a person, you're a thing, used, judged, forgotten, but still, you pay your taxes. It's because Rome needs its brothels, needs its lupi, to keep the men happy, to keep the economy running, to keep the illusion of order. The sisterhood, bonds in the dark. You're not alone. There's a Maritoma from Egypt. She's been here 10 years, knows every trick, every client, every escape route. There's Felicia, the one who cries, but she's strong. She fights. She survives. And there's Ties, the old one. She used to be beautiful. Now she's just tired, but she's kind. She gives you bread when you're hungry. She covers for you when you're sick. And at night when the work is done, you sit together. No men, no clients, just women. You talk about home, about dreams, about the children you lost, the men who hurt you, the ones who didn't. You laugh, you cry, you curse the gods. And for a few hours, you're not lupi. You're just women, and that's enough. The aging body. What happens when you're no longer young? You see it coming? The lines on your face, the stiffness in your joints, the way men look past you now. You're not the girl in the red tunic anymore. You're the one in the corner, the one they don't see. What happens then? Some women quit. But how? No savings, no skills, no family. Some become Lena madams. Less work, more shouting. You yell at the girls. You collect the money. You deal with the tax man. But it's still the same world, just from the other side. Some turn to fortune-telling. After a lifetime of hearing men's secrets, you learn to predict their futures. You'll lose your job. Your wife will leave you. Your son will die. They pay for that. Some become herbalists. You know which herbs ease pain, which ones cause it? You sell potions, love spells, abortifacients, curses, and some just keep working, older, wiser. Less pretty, but still here, still surviving. Because Rome doesn't care how you get old, only that you do it quietly. The end. A life without monuments, you won't be remembered. No statue will be carved in your honor. No poem written about your courage. No temple built to your name. You'll die in the cellar, or in the street, or in the Tiber. And no one will mourn you. But you were here. You walked these streets. You bore the weight of a city that used you, judged you, and needed you. You were not a victim, not entirely. You were clever, adaptable, strong. You learned to read a man's eyes, to negotiate a price, to survive the night. And in a world that gave you nothing, you created a life. Not a good one, not a happy one, but a real one. And sometimes in the quiet moments when the oil lamp flickers and the city sleeps and you're alone with your thoughts, you let yourself imagine another life. A cottage, a garden, a child. A man who loves you. Just once. But then the knock comes. Another client, another coin, and you stand. You smooth your tunic, you paint your smile, and you open the door. Epilogue. The woman in the wall centuries later, in the ruins of Pompeii, archaeologists will find a brothel. They'll uncover the tiny rooms, the stone beds, the graffiti on the walls. Maritimo is here and worth every coin. Felix came twice. Ties gives a good time. They'll laugh. They'll take photos. They'll call it evidence of Roman decadence. But if they listen closely, if they stand in that dark room and close their eyes, they might hear something else. Not laughter, not judgment, but the quiet, steady breath of a woman who lived, who loved, who suffered, who survived, and who, against all odds, refused to be erased. Because even in the shadows, Even in the silence, even in the filth and the pain, she was here, and she mattered. The end. Viking healing and herbal medicine. Wisdom of the North in a world of ice and iron. You are a Leknira healer in a Viking village tucked between fjords and pine forests, where winter gnaws at the bones and fire is the only thing standing between life and the long dark. There is no hospital, no physician in a white coat, no medicine in glass bottles. There is only you, your knowledge, and the land. The wind howls through the longhouse. A warrior lies on a fur-covered bench, his leg wrapped in blood-soaked linen. The wound is deep spear-cut, infected, pulsing with heat. His skin is clammy, his breath comes in short gasps. The women around him whisper prayers to Frigg and Freya. The men stand back, eyes wide, already preparing for loss. You kneel beside him. Your hands are steady, though your heart is not. You open your satchel woven from reindeer hide-and, pull out your tools. Dried herbs, crushed roots, a small clay jar of honey, a flint for fire, and a curved bronze strigil for scraping skin. These are your instruments of salvation. This is not magic, but it is close. This is Viking medicine, born of necessity, refined by generations, and rooted in a deep, sacred bond with the natural world. The healer's craft, where nature meets the divine in the Viking age. Illness was not just a physical ailment. It was a sign of imbalance between body and spirit, between the seen and unseen. To heal was not only to treat a wound, but to restore harmony. And so, the Leknira, a woman, sometimes called a vulva or Sakona, was more than a doctor. She was a bridge, a listener, a weaver of remedies and rituals. She knew which plants to gather in spring, which roots to dig in autumn, and how to dry them in the smoky rafters of the longhouse to last through the endless winter. Her knowledge was passed down in whispers from mother to daughter, elder to apprentice, never written, but never forgotten. And her pharmacy, it grew in the wild. Yarrow, the warrior's friend you reach first, for Yarrow Killia millefolium, a silvery green plant with feathery leaves and clusters of tiny white flowers. It grows near streams, in meadows, and along rocky paths. You crush the leaves between your fingers. A sharp, clean scent rises. This is no ordinary herb. Yarrow is a coagulant, a healer of wounds, a gift from the gods. You press the crushed leaves directly onto the warrior's gash. Blood slows. The bleeding stops. Then you bind the wound tightly with linen soaked in boiled water, clean as you can make it. The warrior groans. You whisper a chant soft, rhythmic calling on Odin, the Allfather, to lend strength. Not because you believe he will answer, but because the rhythm calms the man. And calm is healing. Yarrow is more than medicine. It is faith in action. Angelica, the purifier, but the wound is infected. You see it in the red streaks creeping up his thigh. You feel the unnatural heat beneath your palm. For this, you need Angelica archangelica, tall, hollow-stemmed plant with umbrella-like clusters of greenish-white flowers. It thrives in cold, damp places, and Vikings prized it above almost all other herbs. You grind the dried root into a fine powder, mix it with rendered goat fat, and spread the salve over the wound. Angelica is antiseptic, warming, it fights decay from within. You also brew a tea steeping, the root in hot water, and make the warrior drink it. He grimaces. The taste is bitter, earthy, alive. But within days the fever breaks, the swelling fades. Angelica does not just heal the body, it cleanses the blood, stirs the spirit. In Norse belief, some plants are sacred. Angelica is one. Its name, Markangelica, means of the archangel. And though this is Latin, the Vikings felt its power just the same. It was a protector, a guardian. Women also used it to ease childbirth and regulate menstruation vital, in a world where every birth was a gamble with death. Birch sap, the spring elixir when winter ends, the Leknir returns to the forest. She taps the birch tree, slicing into the bark just enough to let the clear, slightly sweet sap flow into a wooden bowl. This is birch sap, nature's rehydration, rich in minerals, sugars, and electrolytes. It revives the weak, renews the sick, and restores those drained by long illness or fasting. You serve it fresh to children with fevers. You ferment it into a light medicinal mead for elders recovering from colds. And in steam baths, You boil birch leaves to release their vapors, cleansing, purifying, opening the lungs. The birch is the first tree to grow after fire. It symbolizes rebirth. And so its sap is not just medicine, it is hope. Juniper, the cleanser of air and spirit. You hang bundles of juniper over the door. Its sharp, piney scent fills the longhouse. But this is not just for fragrance. Juniper is a purifier. You burn its branches in the hearth, letting the smoke fill the room after someone has died, or when sickness spreads. The smoke disinfects. It clears the air. And in the minds of the people, it drives away evil spirits draugar, restless ghosts, or the Mara that sits on your chest in the night. Juniper berries, too, are medicine. You brew them into tea, a diuretic that flushes the body, helps with urinary infections, and warms the core. Sailors carry them on long voyages to prevent scurvy. And in sweat lodges, juniper is laid on hot stones, releasing a sharp, invigorating steam that opens the sinuses and clears the mind. For the Vikings, health was not just physical, it was spiritual. And juniper stood guard at the threshold. Meadowsweet. Nature's aspirin, you find meadowsweet filipendula, old maria growing in damp meadows, its creamy white flowers glowing in the summer sun. You dry the blossoms and steep them into tea. This is pain relief. Centuries before aspirin, the Vikings used meadowsweet to treat headaches, joint pain, and fever. They didn't know about salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin, but they knew the results. A warrior with a broken arm sips the tea and sleeps without screaming. An elder with stiff knees walks a little farther. And during childbirth, meadowsweet tea eases cramps and brings calm. It is gentle, soothing, a quiet ally in a world of violence and cold. Mugwort, the dream herb now. The moon is high. A young woman sits by the fire, trembling. She cannot sleep. She dreams of shadows, of falling, of voices calling her name. You hand her a pouch of mugwort artemisia, vulgaris, a silver-reliefed plant with a bitter smell. Burn a sprig, you say, or place it under your pillow. Mugwort is not just medicine, it is magic. It calms the nervous system, aids digestion, helps regulate menstruation. But more than that, it opens the door to dreams. Viking seers used mugwort in rituals of seer, trance-like states where they spoke with the gods or saw the future. You do not claim to be a prophet, but you know this. When the mind is troubled, sleep is the first healer, and mugwort guides the way. Garlic, the warriors shield you. Crush a clove of garlic, precious. You mix it with honey and give it to a child coughing through the night. Garlic is powerful. It kills infection, fights parasites, strengthens the blood. Applied to wounds, it stings, but it prevents rot. Eaten daily, it wards off illness. Before raids, warriors chewed garlic, believing its fire would protect them. It was not just food, it was armor. Nettle, the plant of resilience, you gather stinging nettle leaven in winter. When its leaves are gone, the roots remain. You brew nettle, tea-rich in iron, vitamin C, calcium. It strengthens the weak, rebuilds the blood. For warriors recovering from battle, it is a tonic. For women after childbirth, it restores energy. And in a practice called urtication, you strike stiff limbs with fresh nettle stalks. Yes, it hurts. But it brings blood to frozen muscles, relieves arthritis, and wakes the body. The nettle is painful, but it heals, so it is respected. The legacy of the Leknir, you are not a legend. No skald will sing your name. No runestone will mark your grave. But you are needed. When the winter comes and the cold bites deep, they will call for you. When a child burns with fever, they will bring her to you. When a man bleeds out on the battlefield, they will pray for someone like you to arrive in time. And you will come. With yarrow, with angelica, birch sap and juniper smoke. With knowledge passed from hand to hand, voice to voice, across generations, you do not have science, but you have observation. You do not have hospitals, but you have the forest. And in the end, that is enough. Because in the Viking world, survival was not about comfort. It was about resilience. And the Leknir, the healer, the wise woman, the quiet guardian, was one of the most vital forces in that survival. Not with a sword, but with a handful of leaves, a whispered chant, and the unshakable belief that nature, if listened to, will provide. The life of Joan of Arc in the quiet village of nestled in war-torn northeastern France. A peasant girl named Joan of Arc was born in 1412, a time when her nation was fractured by the Biennial War between England and France. The daughter of devout farmers, Joan spent her childhood tending sheep, praying at the local chapel, and absorbing the stories of saints and soldiers that filled her world. But at the age of 13, her life changed forever. While working in her father's garden, she heard a voice, clear, radiant, and divine. Before her stood Saint Michael the Archangel, accompanied by Saint Catherine and Saint Margaret, who told her she was chosen by God to save France, to drive out the English and see the Dauphin, Charles, crowned king in Reims. For years the voices returned, urging her to act. By 1428, with the city under siege and French morale crumbling, the 16-year-old Joan knew the time had come. She traveled to Vaucluse and demanded an audience with the local commander, Robert de Baudricourt, declaring she had a message from God. At first dismissed as a delusional girl, her unwavering conviction and a prophecy she made about a French defeat before news arrived convinced him to send her, dressed as a man for safety, on a perilous 300-mile journey through enemy territory. In February 1429, Joan arrived at the court of Charles in Chinon. To test her, Charles disguised himself among his nobles, but Joan instantly identified him, claiming divine knowledge. Skeptical, the court sent her to Poitiers for theological examination. Over weeks, church officials questioned her faith, her visions, and her purity. They found no heresy, only a girl of astonishing composure, intelligence, and devotion. Approved to join the army, Joan received a white banner inscribed with Jesus Maria, declaring she would lead not with a sword, but with faith. Arrival in April 1429 electrified the troops. Dressed in white armor, riding a white horse, she became a living symbol of hope. Though she never wielded a weapon in combat, her presence turned the tide. During the siege, she was wounded by an arrow, but returned to the front lines, rallying the French with cries of divine victory. On May 8th, the English retreated, was saved. Emboldened, Joan urged Charles to march to Reims for his coronation, the sacred heart of French kingship. Despite resistance, the army pressed on, capturing towns and crossing hostile lands. On July 17, 1429, Charles was crowned King Charles VII. With Joan standing beside him, her banner held high. It was the fulfillment of her divine mission. But her triumph was short-lived. When she pushed to liberate Paris, Charles hesitated, favoring diplomacy. The failed assault in September 1429 weakened her influence. Isolated and increasingly defiant, Joan continued fighting until May 23, 1430, when she was captured by Burgundians during a sortie sold to the English. She was imprisoned in Rouen and put on trial for heresy, charged with witchcraft, cross-dressing, and claiming direct communication with God. Joan defended herself with courage and wit. When asked if she was in God's grace, she replied, "If I am not, may God put me there. If I am, may God keep me there." Got condemned. She was burned at the stake on May 30th, 1431, at just 19 years old. 25 years later, her trial was declared unjust. In 1920, the Catholic Church canonized her as a saint. Today, Joan of Arc remains a symbol of faith, courage, and national identity, a peasant girl who changed history, not by sword, but by spirit. The life of a medieval baker, you wake in darkness, not to the soft glow of dawn, but to the biting cold of midnight. While the town sleeps, wrapped in wool and silence, you rise. Your hands calloused and cracked, moved by instinct, stoking the hearth, drawing water, measuring flour by the dim light of a tallow candle. The rhythm of your life is set not by the sun, but by the oven. And tonight, like every night, the ovens must be hot by first light. You are a medieval baker, and the city depends on you. The heart of your trade is the oven, a domed chamber of brick and clay, built low to the ground and thick-walled to hold heat. Long before dawn, you feed it a roaring fire, burning oak or beech until the stones glow red. Hours pass. Smoke fills the bakehouse. Your lungs burn. Your face glistens with sweat. When the time is right, you rake out the embers, sweep the hearth with a damp peel, and slide in the first loave's dough. Risen slowly from a sourdough starter shaped by hands that know the exact pressure, the perfect fold. Bread in the Middle Ages is not just food, it is life. But not all bread is equal. For the nobles and clergy, you bake manchet fine white bread, sifted through linen, soft and costly, a symbol of status. For townspeople, there is ravel, a denser wheat loaf, hearty and honest. And for the poor, maslin or black breda, coarse mix of rye, barley, oats, sometimes stretched with beans or sawdust in lean times. What you eat tells the world who you are. Your tools are simple but sacred. Wooden troughs for kneading, long-handled peels to slide loaves in and out, iron scales to weigh each loaf with precision, 'cause in this world, baking is not just craft, it is law. Guilds and town authorities watch closely. The assize of bread, a royal decree in England, ties the price and weight of bread to the cost of grain. If grain rises, your profit falls. App! But if you're caught selling underweight loaves, the punishment is public shame, pillory fines, or worse. You might be forced to parade through the market with a loaf of bad bread around your neck, mocked by the very people you feed. And then there's the fire. Gives life but can take it just as fast. Thatched roofs, timber frames, crowded streets, your bakehouse is a spark away from disaster. Many towns ban private ovens, forcing families to bring dough to communal bakehouses like yours. You are not just a baker, you are a guardian of safety. Women are part of this world too. Widows inherit their husbands' ovens, mothers bake for families. Some sell loaves from baskets in the streets, their voices rising above the market clamor. Though rarely named, they are essential. The church, too, relies on you. Monasteries need vast quantities of bread for monks, for the poor, for the Eucharist. The host, unleavened and pure, must be made from the finest flour, baked in reverence. You are feeding not just bodies, but souls. Bread is power. When it's scarce, riots erupt. Starving crowds, storm bakeries, smashing ovens, looting grain. Kings know this. Stability begins with a full belly. So the baker stands at the crossroads of hunger and order. By morning, your work is done. The scent of warm bread drifts through the streets. The town stirs. And as people break their fast, they rarely think of the hands that made it possible.
Ow, but you know.
You are unseen, and yet you keep the world fed. Conclusion. The quiet architects of history. When we think of the past, we often picture grand scenes, emperors on marble thrones, knights charging into battle, saints ascending in golden light. We remember the names carved in stone, the wars that redrew borders, the speeches that changed nations. But history is not only made in the spotlight, it is also lived in the shadows, in the cellar of a Roman brothel, in the smoke of a Viking hearth, in the flour-dusted hands of a midnight baker, and the whispered prayers of a peasant girl who dared to lead an army. The truth is, civilizations do not run on glory alone. They run on labor, on the quiet, relentless work of people who were never meant to be remembered. The Roman prostitute, branded by law and scorned by society, was more than a symbol of vice. She was an economic force, a taxpayer, a survivor in a world that used her body and then punished her for it. Her life etched in graffiti on a Pompeian wall. Maritima was here, and worth every coin, is a rare whisper from a woman history tried to erase. Yet she fed families, funded public works, and navigated a world of danger, disease, and desire with wit and resilience. The Viking healer, kneeling over a wounded warrior with yarrow in hand, was not just a herbalist. She was a scientist of her time, a spiritual guide, a keeper of knowledge passed mouth to ear through generations. In a world without hospitals, her understanding of angelica, mugwort, and nettle meant the difference between life and death. She healed not with machines, but with memory and, in doing so, held her community together. Joan of Arc, the peasant girl who heard saints and crowned a king, reminds us that courage doesn't always come from power. Sometimes it comes from conviction. She had no army of her own, no education, no right to speak, but she spoke anyway. And in her short, blazing life, she reshaped a nation's soul, not through conquest, but through faith. And the medieval baker, rising before dawn to feed a sleeping town, was a guardian of order. His ovens were regulated like banks, his loaves weighed like gold. Bad batch could spark a riot, a good one could sustain a city. Worked in darkness, unseen, uncelebrated, yet without him, the world would starve. These are not the figures who get statues. No empires were named after them. No epics were sung in their honor. But they were here, and they mattered. Because history is not just about the few who ruled. It is about the many who lived, who worked, who loved, who endured. They didn't change the world with swords or laws. They changed it by surviving, by showing up, by keeping the ovens hot, the wounds clean, the spirits lifted, and the hungry fed. So when we look back, let us not only honor the names we know, let us remember the ones history forgot. For in their silence, in their struggle, in their quiet strength, we find the true heartbeat of the past. And perhaps, in honoring them, we learn to see the quiet heroes of our own time. The unseen, the overlooked, the essential, who even now are shaping the world.